I was holding a greasy shop rag when my wife told the judge I didn't know what year it was. Her voice was calm, practiced, like she'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. The fluorescent lights in the courthouse hummed overhead, the kind of buzz that gets under your skin after a while. The air smelled like floor wax and old paper. My hands wanted to shake, but I kept them still. Steady hands, steady mind. That's what 36 years of diesel work teaches you. Your Honor, Sandra said, her voice breaking just right, my husband has become increasingly confused. Last week he couldn't remember our address. He left the stove on 3 times this month. I sat there in my only suit, the one I'd worn to my brother's funeral 4 years back, and I watched her lie. The leather chair creaked under me. My stepson Derek sat behind her, his face blank. The kid I'd put through college, the kid whose truck I'd rebuilt from the frame up when he was 17. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, hit that like button right now. This story is for you. The thing about lies is they have weight. You can feel them in a room. They press down on your chest like a lead apron. Sandra kept talking, her hands folded in her lap, her wedding ring catching the light. 22-carat gold. I'd saved for 3 months to buy that ring. He needs professional care, she continued. I've spoken with his doctors. Which doctors? The judge interrupted. Sandra hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. Dr. Patel at Community Health, she said, and Dr. Morrison at the clinic on Coliseum. I'd never been to either place. The judge looked at me. Mr. Mercer, do you understand why we're here today? Yes, ma'am, I said. My voice came out steady, calm. My wife filed for guardianship. She's claiming I'm not competent to manage my own affairs. And is that true? No, ma'am. Sandra's lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit, leaned forward. Your Honor, Mr. Mercer's condition has deteriorated rapidly. We have documentation. We'll get to the documentation, the judge said. She looked tired, like she'd heard 1,000 versions of this same story. Mr. Mercer, what's today's date? January 7th, 2026, I said. Wednesday, it's been cold this week, high of 23 yesterday. We're supposed to get snow tonight. Sandra's jaw tightened. What's your address? The judge asked. 4127 Winter Street, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Apartment 2B. I paused. I moved there 6 weeks ago, after my wife changed the locks on our house on Harshman Road. The courtroom went quiet. The only sound was the heating vent rattling somewhere above us. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up a little. My name is Hank Mercer. I was 59 years old that January, living in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'd been a diesel mechanic most of my life. 36 years of early mornings, black oil under my fingernails, and the smell of fuel that never quite washes off. I specialized in big rigs, the kind that haul freight across the country. 18-wheelers with engines the size of a compact car, the kind of work where one mistake means someone dies on the highway. You learn patience in that job. You learn to double-check everything. You learn that rushing gets people killed. I met Sandra at a church barbecue in 2003. She was 41, divorced, with a 15-year-old son named Derek. I was 44, never married, no kids. We dated for a year. Got married in 2004. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Derek was the best man. He shook my hand afterwards and said, "Take care of my mum." I did. For 22 years, I took care of both of them. Derek wanted to be an engineer. Problem was, his dad wasn't paying child support, and Sandra worked retail at Kohl's, couldn't afford college. So I sat down with the kid when he was 17 and laid it out for him. You maintain a B average, I told him, and I'll cover your tuition. State school, 4 years, room and board included. He graduated from Purdue in 2012, mechanical engineering, got a job at GM in 3 months. Never said thank you, but I didn't need him to. The work was enough. I also rebuilt his truck that summer. 1998 Chevy Silverado, blown head gasket, transmission slipping. We spent 2 months in my garage on Harshman Road, me teaching him how to torque bolts properly, how to read a service manual, how to replace a clutch without dropping it on your foot. Why are you doing this? He asked me one night. We were under the truck, our hands black with grease, the summer heat pressing down like a wet blanket. Because you're family, I said. He didn't answer, just nodded and went back to work. That was Derek. Quiet, kept his cards close, like his mother. The years went by. Steady, unremarkable years. I worked at Miller's Diesel on Lima Road, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday. Sometimes Saturdays during harvest season when the trucking companies needed quick turnarounds. Sandra kept working retail until 2018, when she hurt her back and went on disability. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling either. I made decent money. We owned the house on Harshman Road outright, paid off the mortgage in 2016, had a joint checking account, joint savings account, everything split down the middle. That's how marriage works, right? What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. But I should have paid more attention. I should have seen the signs. It started small, little things. Sandra would mention a bill I supposedly forgot to pay. The electric company called, she'd say. You didn't mail the check. I'd check my records. The check had been mailed, on time. You must be confused, she'd say, her voice soft, patient, like she was talking to a child. Then Derek started coming around more. Sunday dinners became a thing. He'd show up every week, sit at our kitchen table, eat the pot roast I'd cooked and barely speak to me. He'd talk to Sandra in low voices. They'd stop when I walked in the room. Everything okay, I'd ask. Fine, Sandra would say, we're just talking. One Sunday in October, I walked into the kitchen and caught the end of their conversation. Not going to last forever, Derek was saying. You need to be realistic. I know, Sandra said, but it's complicated. They both looked up when they saw me. Sandra smiled. Hey, hun, dinner's almost ready. I didn't push it. I should have, but I didn't. Steady hands, steady mind. Don't jump to conclusions. But the comments kept coming, little jabs, little corrections. You already told me that story, Sandra would say at dinner. You don't remember? You forgot to lock the door again, she'd say in the morning. I had to go back and check. You're getting confused, Hank, she'd say when I disagreed with her about something. You're thinking of something else. It was like she was building a case, brick by brick. Except I didn't know what the case was for, not yet. Then, in early December, something happened that should have been my first real warning. I was at work, under a freightliner with a blown oil cooler when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. My hands were covered in oil and the truck was on a lift. But something made me wipe my hands and check the screen. First National Bank. Our bank. Mr. Mercer, a woman's voice said. This is Angela Reeves, branch manager at First National on Coliseum. Do you have a moment? Sure, I said. What's going on? I'm calling about your joint checking account ending in 4739. We've noticed some unusual activity, and I wanted to verify some withdrawals with you. My chest tightened. What kind of withdrawals? Large cash withdrawals, she said, over the past 6 weeks. 6 separate transactions, each just under $10,000. That triggers our reporting requirements, so I wanted to make sure you were aware of them. I wasn't. Can you hold on? I asked. I walked outside into the December cold. The parking lot was empty. The sky was grey, heavy with snow. My breath came out in clouds. How much total? I asked. $54,000, she said, all withdrawn by Sandra Mercer. The world tilted. I put my hand on the hood of a parked semi to steady myself. The metal was cold, almost burning through my glove. Mr. Mercer, are you there? Yeah, I said, I'm here. These were all legitimate withdrawals? She asked. You authorized them? No, I said, I didn't. Silence on the other end. Then, I see. Mr. Mercer, I think you should come in as soon as possible. Today, if you can. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up. Stood there in the cold. The shop radio was playing inside, some country song about trucks and heartbreak, the kind of song that's playing in every garage in America. Steady hands, steady mind. I went back inside, told my boss I had an emergency, and drove straight to the bank. The branch was on Coliseum Boulevard, a low brick building with a drive-through on one side. I parked in front and went in. The air inside smelled like coffee and paper. Holiday decorations hung from the ceiling. Fake snow in the windows. Angela Reeves met me at the door. She was in her 50s, grey hair, kind eyes, the kind of person who takes her job seriously. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "thank you for coming. Let's talk in my office." We sat down in a small room with a desk and 2 chairs. She closed the door. "I pulled your account records," she said, sliding a printout across the desk. "These are the withdrawals in question." I looked at the dates: November 3rd, November 10th, November 17th, November 24th, December 1st, December 8th, all Mondays. All between 10 a.m. and noon, all made in person at the branch. "Did you notice these?" she asked. "No," I said. "I don't usually check the account that closely. Sandra handles most of the bills." Angela nodded. "Mr. Mercer, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you and your wife having marital problems?" I looked at her. "Why do you ask?" "Because this pattern, large, structured withdrawals just under the reporting threshold, it's something we see in divorce cases. Someone trying to move money without the other person noticing." The words hit me like a wrench to the chest. Divorce. It hadn't even occurred to me. "She hasn't said anything," I said, "about divorce." "Has she said anything about anything?" Angela asked gently. "Any unusual behavior? Any changes?" I thought about the last 2 months, the little comments, the Sunday dinners with Derek, the way she'd stopped touching me, the way she'd stopped looking at me. "Yeah," I said, "there have been changes." Angela leaned forward. "Mr. Mercer, I'm going to be very direct with you. If your wife is planning to leave you and she's moving money out of your joint account, you need to protect yourself. Right now. Today. What do I do? First, you need a lawyer. Second, you need to move whatever money is left in that account to an account in your name only. Third, you need to document everything. Bank records, credit card statements, property deeds, everything." I sat there, trying to process it all. The office was warm, too warm. I could feel sweat forming under my collar. "How much is left?" I asked. "In the account?" She looked at her screen. "As of this morning, $3,047. We'd had over $60,000 in that account 2 months ago. Our emergency fund. Money I'd saved for 20 years. Money for medical bills, car repairs, unexpected expenses. Money I'd earned 1 hour at a time, 1 truck at a time, 1 honest day at a time. Gone." "Mr. Mercer," Angela said. "Are you okay?" "No," I said, "I'm not." She reached across the desk and touched my hand. Her fingers were warm. "I know this is hard, but you need to act fast. Can you call a lawyer right now?" I nodded, pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking. I hated that they were shaking. Steady hands, steady mind. I called the only lawyer I knew, Jim Holloway. He'd handled the title work when we bought the house on Harshman Road. Good man, straightforward. He answered on the second ring. "Hank, that you?" "Yeah, Jim, I need help." "What's going on?" I told him. All of it. The withdrawals, the bank manager, Sandra's behavior, the Sunday dinners with Derek. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. "Hank," Jim said finally, his voice low, "how soon can you get to my office?" 30 minutes. I'll be here." I thanked Angela Reeves, walked out of the bank and sat in my truck for a full minute before I could make myself start the engine. The steering wheel was cold under my hands. The dashboard smelled like old coffee and diesel. The same smell as my work boots, the same smell as my whole life. And I realized something sitting there in that parking lot, with the December wind rattling the windows and the grey sky pressing down. I didn't know my wife at all. But I was about to find out who she really was. Jim Holloway's office was on Broadway, above a pawn shop. I climbed the narrow stairs and found him waiting in the hallway. He was mid-50s, balding, with the kind of tired eyes that come from seeing too many divorces. "Come on," he said. "Let's talk." His office was small. 1 desk, 2 chairs, filing cabinets lining the walls. He closed the door and pointed to a chair. "Sit, talk, don't leave anything out." I told him everything again. He took notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me. "Hank, I'm going to be very blunt with you. If what you're telling me is true, and I believe it is, your wife is setting you up for something big. The question is what? Divorce?" Maybe. But the way she's moving the money, the way she's making these comments about you being confused. He paused. Has she mentioned guardianship? Power of attorney, anything like that? No. Has she suggested you see a doctor, get checked out? Anything about memory issues? I thought back. 2 weeks ago, Sandra had mentioned something about scheduling a physical. Just a checkup, she'd said. You're almost 60. It's time. I told Jim. His jaw tightened. Hank, I think your wife is building a case to have you declared incompetent. The word hung in the air. Incompetent. That's insane, I said. I'm fine. I work full-time. I manage my own life. I'm not... I know, Jim said. But if she can convince a judge you're not capable of managing your own affairs, she can get guardianship. And once she has that, she controls everything. Your money, your property, your medical decisions. Everything. The office was quiet. I could hear traffic outside on Broadway, the heater clicking on. Why would she do this, I asked. Money, Jim said flatly. It's always money, Hank. If she divorces you straight up, Indiana's a 50-50 state. She gets half. But if she gets guardianship, she controls all of it. And you? You'd be stuck in some facility somewhere while she sells the house, spends your savings, and lives the life she wants. I felt sick. What do I do? Jim leaned forward. First, we document everything. Bank records, medical records, employment records. Anything that proves you're mentally competent. Second, we file a motion to freeze all joint accounts. She can't spend what she can't access. Third, we prepare for her to file guardianship paperwork, because that's coming. Fourth, he paused. Fourth, you need to move out. Tonight. Move out. If she's building a case that you're incompetent, she's going to point to everything. Every time you forget where you put your keys, every time you're late for dinner. She'll twist it all. You need to be in your own space, living your own life, proving you're capable. Get an apartment, set up your own utilities. Show the judge you're functioning just fine without her. Tell me in the comments, would you have exploded right there, or would you have waited like I did? I left Jim's office with a plan, 3 pages of handwritten notes, a list of documents to gather, a list of phone calls to make, a list of places to look for an apartment. I sat in my truck in the parking lot and called my boss. Frank, it's Hank. I need to take some time off. How much time? A week, maybe 2. Silence. Then, everything okay? No, but it will be. You've got it. Take what you need. I hung up, looked at the list, started at the top. First, bank records. I drove to First National, walked inside, and asked for printed statements going back 2 years. Angela Reeves processed the request herself. The statements came out to 87 pages. I put them in a manila folder and set it on the passenger seat. Second, medical records. I called Dr. Patterson, my GP at Lutheran Hospital, explained I needed copies of my records for legal purposes. They said it would take 3 days. I asked if they could expedite it. They said they'd try. Third, employment records. I called Frank again, asked for a letter confirming my employment status, hours worked, performance reviews. He said he'd have it ready by tomorrow. Fourth, apartment. I spent the rest of the afternoon driving around Fort Wayne, looking at rental signs. Found a small 1-bedroom on Winter Street. Clean, cheap, available immediately. The landlord was an older woman named Mrs. Chen. She looked at my work boots and my calloused hands and nodded. You pay on time, you keep it clean, we won't have problems, she said. Yes, ma'am. First and last month plus deposit. Cash or check? Check. She handed me the lease. I signed it. Apartment 2B, $750 a month. Available December 10th, 3 days from now. I drove back to the house on Harshman Road. It was almost dark. The porch light was on. Sandra's car was in the driveway. Through the window, I could see her moving around in the kitchen. I sat in the truck for a minute, the engine running, the heater blowing warm air. The house looked the same as it always had. Brown siding, white trim, the shutters I'd painted last summer, the mailbox I'd replaced 2 years ago, the driveway I'd sealed in 2019. My house. Except it wasn't mine anymore. Maybe it never had been. I turned off the engine and went inside. Sandra was at the stove, stirring something in a pot. The kitchen smelled like tomato sauce and garlic. She looked up when I came in. "You're late," she said, not accusing, just stating a fact. "Had some errands," I said. "Dinner's almost ready." I set my keys on the counter, hung up my coat, washed my hands at the sink. The water was hot, almost burning. I scrubbed until my hands were red. "Everything okay?" Sandra asked. "Fine." We ate in silence. Spaghetti and meatballs, garlic bread, salad. Sandra's cooking had always been good. Solid, dependable, like her lies. "Derek's coming by tomorrow," she said halfway through the meal. "Okay." "He wants to talk to you about something." I looked at her. "About what?" "I'll let him tell you." After dinner, I went to the garage, my space, the one room in the house that was still mine. I had a workbench, a tool chest, a radio. I turned on the radio and sat on a stool, and just breathed. Steady hands, steady mind. Over the next 3 days, I worked like a man possessed. I gathered every document I could find: bank statements, tax returns, mortgage papers, insurance policies, medical bills, employment records. I made copies of everything. Put the originals in a safe deposit box at the credit union on Fairfield. Put the copies in 3 separate folders, one for Jim Holloway, one for me, one backup hidden in my truck. I called Dr. Patterson every day. On December 9th, his office finally sent over my medical records, 47 pages, every visit going back to 2010, every physical, every blood test, every prescription, all showing the same thing: I was healthy. No memory issues, no cognitive decline, no signs of dementia or confusion. I also scheduled a full cognitive evaluation with a neurologist, Dr. Kumar at Parkview. Paid for it out of pocket, $800, worth every penny. He put me through 2 hours of testing: memory tests, problem-solving tests, reaction time tests. When it was done, he printed out the results and handed them to me. "Mr. Mercer," he said, "your cognitive function is normal for your age. Above average, actually. No signs of impairment whatsoever." I took the report and added it to my folders. On December 10th, I moved out. Sandra was at her sister's house that afternoon. I packed 3 suitcases, clothes, toiletries, a few personal items, the photo of my parents from their 50th anniversary, the pocket watch my grandfather had carried, the small wooden box where I kept my father's medals from Korea. I left everything else: the furniture, the dishes, the TV, all of it. I loaded the truck and drove to Winter Street. Mrs. Chen was waiting with the keys. I carried my things up to apartment 2B. It was small, bare walls, old carpet, but it was mine. I called Jim Holloway. "I'm out," I said. "What's next?" "Now we wait," he said. "If she's going to file for guardianship, it'll happen soon. She's been moving the money. She's been planting seeds about your mental state. The next step is to make it official." "How long?" "Could be a week, could be a month, but it's coming, Hank. Be ready." I was ready. I set up the apartment, bought a bed from a second-hand store, a table and 2 chairs, a coffee maker. I kept my routine. Up at 5 a.m., coffee, drive to work. 8 hours under trucks, home by 4:30 p.m. Dinner, TV, bed by 9 p.m. Normal, functional, competent. On December 15th, Sandra called. "Where are you?" she demanded. Her voice was sharp, angry. "I moved out." "Why?" "I think you know why." Silence. Then, "You need to come home. We need to talk about this." "Talk to my lawyer," I said and hung up. She called back 7 times that night. I didn't answer. On December 16th, Derek showed up at the garage. He found me under a Kenworth replacing a fuel filter. I heard his voice before I saw him. "Hank, you under there?" I rolled out on the creeper. Derek was standing in the bay door, hands in his pockets. He looked uncomfortable. "What do you need?" I asked. "My mom's worried about you." "Is she?" "She says you moved out, that you're not answering her calls." I stood up, wiped my hands on a rag, looked at the kid I'd raised, the kid whose college I'd paid for, the kid whose truck I'd rebuilt. "Derek," I said, "do I look incompetent to you?" His eyes shifted. "What?" "Incompetent, confused, unable to manage my own life. Do I look like that to you? I don't. Your mother emptied our bank account. $54,000. Did she tell you that? His face went pale. She's been making comments, I continued, my voice level. Little things about how I'm forgetting things, getting confused, and now she's got you worried. Funny timing, don't you think? She's trying to protect you, Derek said, but his voice wavered. From what? He didn't answer. Go home, Derek, I said. Tell your mother I'm fine. Tell her if she wants to talk, she can call my lawyer. He left. I went back to work, but my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. Steady hands, steady mind. On December 22nd, I got the call from Jim Holloway. She filed, he said. Emergency guardianship petition, hearing set for January 7th. Emergency. She's claiming you're a danger to yourself, that you're confused, disoriented, possibly suffering from early-onset dementia. She's asking for immediate temporary guardianship, pending a full evaluation. On what evidence? Witness statements. Her, Derek, a neighbor named Patricia Simmons. Patricia Simmons, our next-door neighbor, the woman I'd helped every winter for the past 10 years, shoveling her driveway, changing her furnace filters, fixing her porch light. What did Patricia say? I asked. That she's seen you wandering around your yard at odd hours. That you seemed confused when she spoke to you. That you left your garage door open all night multiple times. All lies. She also submitted a letter from a Dr. Morrison at the Coliseum Clinic, Jim continued, saying you were evaluated there in November and showed signs of cognitive impairment. I was never at that clinic. I know. We're going to prove that. But Hank, this is serious. She's playing for keeps. What do I do? We fight. We bring your medical records, your cognitive evaluation, your employment records. We bring witnesses who can testify you're mentally sound, and we expose her lies, all of them. When's the hearing? January 7th, 9 a.m., courthouse on Main Street. Dress nice, bring everything. I spent Christmas alone in my apartment, ate a turkey sandwich, watched TV, thought about Sandra and Derek at the house on Harshman Road, probably eating the ham I'd always cooked, probably sitting at the table I'd built, probably planning their next move. On Christmas night, my brother called from Ohio. Hey, Hank, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Ray. You okay? You sound off. I told him everything. The money, the guardianship petition, Sandra's lies. When I finished, there was a long silence. Jesus, Hank, Ray said finally. What do you need? Nothing, I've got it handled. You sure? Yeah. Hank, he said, you remember what Dad used to say? About liars? I did. Dad had been a machinist, worked at International Harvester for 40 years. He'd seen his share of workplace politics, backstabbing and lies. Liars forget their own stories, I said, repeating Dad's words. The truth doesn't change. Exactly. You stick to the truth, Hank. Document everything. The truth will win. I know. And Hank, I'm proud of you, for not exploding, for playing it smart. We hung up. I sat in the dark apartment and thought about my father, about the way he'd worked with his hands his whole life, about the way he'd never complained, about the way he'd taught me that patience was its own kind of power. Steady hands, steady mind. The weeks between Christmas and the hearing crawled by. I worked, I prepared. I met with Jim Holloway 3 times. We went through my documents. We practiced my testimony. We prepared for every question Sandra's lawyer might ask. They're going to try to rattle you, Jim said. They're going to ask about your age, your job, your memory. They're going to try to make you look confused or forgetful. Stay calm. Answer clearly. Don't elaborate. Just the facts. I can do that. And Hank, whatever you do, don't show anger. Judges don't like angry old men. They think anger is a sign of instability. Stay cool. On January 6th, the day before the hearing, I got my hair cut, went to the barber on Washington, sat in the chair while the barber, an old guy named Lou, trimmed my hair and shaved my neck. Big day tomorrow? Lou asked. Yeah. Court? Yeah. You'll do fine, Lou said. You're a steady guy, I can tell. That night I pressed my suit, polished my shoes, set out my tie, organized my documents in a leather folder Jim had given me, put it on the table by the door. I barely slept. Lay in bed watching the ceiling, listening to the radiator hiss, thinking about Sandra and Derek and what they'd say on the stand, thinking about the judge, thinking about whether the truth would be enough. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep. Got up, made coffee, sat at the table and watched the sun come up over Fort Wayne. The sky was clear, cold. The temperature was supposed to hit 20 degrees by noon. I thought about my mantra, steady hands, steady mind. At 8 a.m. I got dressed, black suit, white shirt, red tie. The same tie I'd worn to Derek's college graduation. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, gray hair, lines around my eyes, calloused hands. The face of a man who'd worked his whole life. Not confused, not incompetent, just tired. I drove to the courthouse on Main Street, found parking in the lot behind the building, walked inside. The lobby smelled like floor wax and old wood. Security waved me through. Jim was waiting by the elevator. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready?" We rode up to the third floor, courtroom 3C. Jim opened the door and we went in. Sandra was already there. She sat at a table on the left side of the room, her lawyer beside her. She wore a black dress, pearls. Her hair was done. She looked like a widow already. Derek sat in the gallery behind her. He didn't look at me. Jim and I sat at the table on the right side. He opened his briefcase and arranged his documents. I set my folder on the table. The bailiff called the room to order. Everyone stood. The judge came in, Judge Martha Klein. Early 60s, grey hair pulled back in a bun, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. "Be seated," she said. And that's how it started. That's how I ended up holding a shop rag, listening to my wife lie about me in front of a judge. Sandra's lawyer went first. His name was Bradley Corrigan. Thin, expensive suit, the kind of guy who'd never changed his own oil. "Your Honor," Corrigan began, "we're here today because Mr. Mercer's mental health has deteriorated rapidly over the past several months. He's become confused, forgetful, and at times disoriented. Mrs. Mercer has tried to help him, but his condition has progressed to the point where he needs professional intervention." He presented documents, a statement from Sandra detailing specific incidents, the letter from Dr. Morrison, the statement from Patricia Simmons. Judge Klein read through them, her face neutral. "Mrs. Mercer," she said, "please approach the stand." Sandra stood, walked to the witness stand, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Corrigan questioned her first. He was gentle, leading, made her seem like a concerned wife who just wanted to help her confused husband. "Mrs. Mercer, can you describe your husband's condition?" "He's been getting worse," Sandra said, her voice trembling. "Last month he couldn't remember where he worked. I had to remind him, and he's been leaving the stove on. 3 times I've come home to find a pot boiling dry." Lies. All lies. "Has he been forgetful about finances?" Corrigan asked. "Yes. He lost track of our bank account. I had to take over managing our money because he couldn't keep track of what we had." Judge Klein looked at Sandra over her reading glasses. "Mrs. Mercer, how much money is currently in your joint checking account?" Sandra hesitated. "I'm not sure exactly." "Approximately?" "Maybe 4,000 or 5,000. "And how much was in the account 3 months ago?" Sandra's face paled. I don't remember exactly." Jim stood. "For Your Honor, may I?" Judge Klein nodded. Jim walked forward and handed a document to the judge. "Your Honor, these are bank statements for the joint account in question. 3 months ago, the balance was $61,182. As of this morning, the balance is $3,206. Mrs. Mercer made 6 cash withdrawals totaling $54,000 over the course of 6 weeks. The courtroom went silent. The only sound was the heating vent rattling above. Judge Klein looked at Sandra. "Mrs. Mercer, where is that money?" I used it for household expenses," Sandra stammered. $54,000 in household expenses, in 6 weeks. "There were medical bills and—" Jim interrupted. "Your Honor, Mr. Mercer's medical records show he had no significant medical expenses during that time period. In fact, his last doctor's visit was for a routine physical in September. Judge Klein set down the bank statements. "Continue, Mr. Corrigan." Corrigan looked rattled, but he pressed on. "Your Honor, regardless of the financial situation, the core issue here is Mr. Mercer's mental competence. We have testimony from a licensed physician." "You mean Dr. Morrison?" Jim said, standing again. "Yes. Your Honor, may I?" Jim held up another document. "This is a statement from Dr. Morrison's clinic on Coliseum Boulevard. It confirms that Henry Mercer has never been a patient at that clinic. The letter Mrs. Mercer submitted is fraudulent." Sandra's eyes went wide. Corrigan's jaw dropped. "Your Honor," Corrigan sputtered, I was not aware." Judge Klein held up her hand. "Mrs. Mercer, did you falsify that letter?" Sandra looked at Derek. Derek looked at the floor. Sandra started, then stopped. The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. "Mrs. Mercer," Judge Klein said, her voice ice-cold, "did you falsify a medical document and submit it to this court?" Sandra's hands were shaking. "I was trying to help him. He needs help, and I—" "Answer the question. Did you falsify the letter?" Silence. Then barely a whisper. "Yes." The gallery erupted. People gasped, whispered. Judge Klein banged her gavel. "Order," she said. "Mrs. Mercer, step down." Sandra stood, her legs shaking. She walked back to her table and sat down. Corrigan was talking to her in low, urgent tones. "Mr. Holloway," Judge Klein said, "call your first witness." Jim stood. "Your Honor, I call Henry Mercer to the stand." I stood, walked to the witness stand. My legs felt steady, my hands felt steady. Steady hands, steady mind. I placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Sat down. Jim approached. "Mr. Mercer, how old are you?" 59. "I'll be 60 in March." "What's your occupation?" "I'm a diesel mechanic. I work at Miller's Diesel on Lima Road. I've been there for 17 years. "How many hours a week do you work?" 40 to 45, typically. Sometimes more during harvest season. "Mr. Mercer, have you ever been diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's, or any cognitive impairment?" "No." Jim handed me a document. "Can you identify this?" I looked at it. "That's the cognitive evaluation I had done last month with Dr. Kumar at Parkview. And what were the results? Normal cognitive function, above average for my age group." Jim turned to Judge Klein. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter this evaluation into evidence, along with Mr. Mercer's complete medical records from the past 15 years. He handed the documents to the bailiff. Judge Klein reviewed them. "Mr. Mercer," Jim continued, "did you authorize the withdrawals your wife made from your joint checking account?" "No." "Did you know about them?" "Not until the bank called me on December 7th. "What did you do when you found out?" "I went to the bank, talked to the branch manager. Then I called my lawyer." "Did you confront your wife?" "No." "Why not?" I looked at Sandra. She was staring at the table, her face pale. "Because I wanted to understand what was happening first," I said. "I wanted to document everything. I wanted to make sure I had proof." Jim nodded. "Mr. Mercer, why did you move out of your home?" "Because my lawyer advised me to. He said if I stayed, my wife would use every little thing against me. Every time I forgot where I put my keys, every time I was late for dinner, she'd twist it into evidence that I was incompetent." "And are you incompetent?" "No, sir. I manage my own life. I pay my bills. I show up to work on time. I do my job well. I'm not confused. I'm not forgetful. I'm just a man who trusted the wrong person." Jim turned to Judge Klein. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Frank Miller to the stand." My boss, Frank, walked up, tall, gray-haired, wearing his work jacket. "Mr. Miller, how long has Mr. Mercer worked for you?" 17 years. "How would you describe his job performance?" "Excellent. Hank's one of the best mechanics I've ever had. He's reliable, detail-oriented, and safe. You don't last in this business if you're sloppy or forgetful. One mistake and someone dies on the highway." "Has Mr. Mercer shown any signs of confusion or memory problems at work?" "None. Not once." Jim also called Angela Reeves, the bank manager. She testified about the withdrawal pattern and her concerns that someone was trying to hide assets. Finally, Jim called Dr. Kumar, the neurologist. He explained the cognitive evaluation in detail. Memory tests, problem-solving tests, reaction time, all normal. By the time Jim was done, it was noon. The evidence was overwhelming. I was competent. Sandra had lied. The guardianship petition was baseless. Judge Klein called a recess for lunch. Jim and I went to a diner down the street. I ordered coffee and a sandwich, didn't touch either. "You did great," Jim said. "This is over. She's got nothing." "What happens to her?" I asked. "Falsifying medical documents? Submitting fraudulent evidence to the court? She could face charges. At minimum, she'll have to pay your legal fees, and the guardianship petition will be denied." At 1 p.m., we went back to the courtroom. Sandra and Corrigan were there. Derek was gone. Judge Klein took the bench. "I've reviewed all the evidence presented today," she said. "Mr. Mercer, I find no basis for the claim that you are mentally incompetent. Your medical records are clear. Your cognitive evaluation is normal. Your employer confirms you're functioning well at work. In contrast, Mrs. Mercer has submitted fraudulent documents and made withdrawals from a joint account without your knowledge or consent." She looked at Sandra. "Mrs. Mercer, I'm denying your petition for guardianship. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to provide a full accounting of the $54,000 you withdrew from the joint account. If you cannot account for those funds, Mr. Mercer will have grounds for a civil suit. I'm also referring this matter to the prosecutor's office for potential criminal charges related to the falsified medical letter." Sandra's face crumpled. She put her head in her hands. "Mr. Mercer," Judge Klein continued, "you are free to manage your own affairs. I'm also ordering that all joint accounts be frozen pending a full financial audit. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. This court is adjourned." The gavel came down. I stood. Jim shook my hand. "We won," he said. "But I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I just felt tired." Sandra and Corrigan left quickly. I watched them go. Sandra didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, the January air was cold and sharp. The sky was bright blue. Snow was coming tonight, just like the forecast said. Jim walked me to my truck. "What now?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "Divorce, I guess." "Probably. And you'll get your money back, or most of it. We'll file a civil suit if we have to." "Yeah." He put his hand on my shoulder. "Hank, you did the right thing. You kept your head. You documented everything. You didn't let her gaslight you. A lot of men would have exploded. You didn't." "Steady hand, steady mind," I said. He smiled. "That's right." I drove back to my apartment on Winter Street, went inside, made coffee, sat at the small table and looked out the window at the street below. People walking, cars passing, life going on like nothing had happened. But something had happened. I'd taken my life back. Over the next few weeks, the pieces fell into place. Sandra was charged with fraud and perjury. She pleaded guilty as part of a deal and got probation and community service. She was also ordered to pay $15,000 in restitution and all my legal fees. Derek called once. "I didn't know," he said. "About the money, about the letter, I swear." "But you knew something," I said. Silence. "You knew she was setting me up," I continued. "You just didn't ask questions." "I'm sorry," he said. "I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix it, Derek." I hung up. Haven't spoken to him since. Sandra and I divorced in March. It was quick, uncontested. She got nothing. The house on Harshman Road went to me. I sold it in April. Used the money to buy a small place outside the city. 2 bedrooms, a garage, 5 acres. I still work at Miller's Diesel. Still get up at 5 a.m. Still spend my days under trucks, hands black with grease, solving problems one bolt at a time. But now when I come home, it's to my own space, my own quiet, my own life. I don't feel victorious. I don't feel like I got revenge. I just feel like I got the truth. And sometimes that's enough. People ask me if I'm angry. If I hate Sandra, the answer is no, I'm not angry, I'm just done. You can't be angry at someone you don't think about anymore. What I learned from all this is simple. Patience is power. Documentation is strength. The truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be accurate. Sandra tried to take everything from me. My money, my home, my dignity, my freedom. But she couldn't take the one thing that mattered, my ability to think clearly, to plan carefully, and to act decisively. Steady hands, steady mind. That's what got me through. Last week, I ran into Patricia Simmons at the grocery store, our old neighbor, the one who'd lied on the witness stand. She saw me and looked away, started to walk past. "Patricia," I said. She stopped, turned. Her face was pale. "I just wanted you to know," I said, keeping my voice calm, "that I forgive you. I don't know what Sandra told you or why you said what you said, but I forgive you." Her eyes filled with tears. "She told me you were sick," she whispered. "She said you needed help. I thought I was doing the right thing." "I know. I'm so sorry." "I know you are." She walked away. I finished my shopping and went home. And here I am now, 59 years old. Living alone, working with my hands, drinking coffee on my porch in the mornings, and watching the sun come up over my 5 acres. Some people might think my life is small, quiet, unremarkable. But it's mine. And that's enough. If this story reminded you that dignity matters more than approval, hit that subscribe button. We tell the hard truths here. And if you want more stories about quiet strength and second chances, stick around. Because here's what I've learned. Revenge isn't loud when it's done right. It's just the truth told at the right time to the right people. And the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be steady. Like my hands, like my mind. Thank you for listening. I sat on my porch last Sunday morning, the same porch where I drink my coffee now, and I thought about everything that happened. About Sandra and Derek and that courthouse, and the way the truth came out like water finding its way through a crack. The sun was just coming up, turning the sky that particular shade of orange that only happens in winter. Cold, clear, the kind of morning where you can see your breath. I had my hands wrapped around a mug of black coffee, and I could feel the warmth seeping through the ceramic into my palms. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer. But I looked at the screen and saw it was Ray, my brother. "Hey," I said. "Hey yourself, how you doing?" "Good, real good, actually." "You sound different," Ray said. "Lighter." "Maybe I am." We talked for a while, about nothing much. His grandkids, the weather in Ohio, the Browns losing again. Normal brother talk. The kind of conversation that doesn't need to mean anything because it already means everything. Before we hung up, Ray said, "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're the strongest guy I know, and I don't mean strong like lifting heavy things. I mean strong like not breaking when someone tries to break you." I didn't know what to say to that. "I'm proud of you, Hank," Ray said. "Dad would be too." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, thinking about my father, about the way he'd worked at the harvester plant for 40 years, through strikes and layoffs and restructuring, about the way he'd come home every night, hands scarred and tired, but never bitter. Never mean. He used to tell me, "The world's full of people who want to take what's yours, money, time, peace of mind. You can't stop all of them, but you can make damn sure they don't take who you are." I didn't understand that when I was young. I thought he was talking about being stubborn, but now I get it. He was talking about dignity, about keeping your core intact even when everything around you is falling apart. Sandra tried to take who I was. She tried to make me into a confused old man, a burden, someone who needed to be managed and controlled and put away. But I didn't let her, not because I fought back with anger or violence or revenge, but because I stayed exactly who I was, calm, methodical, patient. I used the same skills I use every day under trucks. Diagnose the problem, document the evidence, fix what's broken. She gambled that I'd explode, that I'd yell or threaten or do something reckless that would prove her right, that I was unstable, incompetent, dangerous, but I didn't give her that. I gave her silence, documentation, the slow, inevitable weight of the truth, and that's what buried her. I finished my coffee, went inside. The house was quiet, just me and the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own footsteps on the hardwood floor. I'd bought this place in April. Small ranch house, built in the 70s. Needed some work, but nothing I couldn't handle. New roof, updated plumbing, fresh paint. I'd spent the summer fixing it up. Took my time, did it right. The garage was my favorite part. 2 bays, high ceilings. Concrete floor. I'd sealed myself. I'd set up a workbench along one wall, tool chest, air compressor, radio, everything I needed. Sometimes on weekends I'd go out there and just work. Not on anything important, just projects. Little things. I rebuilt a lawnmower engine last month, restored an old handplane I'd found at an estate sale, fixed the hinges on Mrs. Chen's screen door when she mentioned they were squeaking. Work with a purpose. Work that mattered. Work that was mine. One Saturday in October I was in the garage when I heard a car pull up. I walked out and saw Derek standing by a silver Audi, newer model, expensive. We hadn't spoken since that phone call in January, 9 months of silence. He looked older, tired. His hair was starting to thin at the temples. "Hank," he said. "Derek." We stood there for a minute, the October wind moving the leaves around the driveway. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Depends on what you want to talk about. About what happened, about—" He stopped, started again. "About the fact that I failed you." I didn't say anything, just waited. "I knew something was wrong," Derek continued. "Mom was acting weird, secretive. She kept asking me questions about legal stuff, about guardianship and power of attorney, and I just didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe my mom would do something like that." "But you knew," I said. "Yeah, I knew." "And you didn't warn me." "No, I didn't." He looked at the ground. "I told myself I was staying neutral, that it was between you and her, but that was bullshit. I wasn't neutral. I was on her side because she's my mom, and you—" He looked up at me. "You were just the guy who married her, right?" The words hung there between us. "That's what you thought?" I asked. "That's what I let myself think," Derek said, "because it was easier than admitting the truth." "Which is?" "That you were more of a father to me than my real dad ever was, that you paid for my education, taught me how to work with my hands, showed up to every graduation and birthday and important moment. And when my mom tried to destroy you, I stood there and let it happen because I was too much of a coward to stand up to her." His voice broke on the last word. I looked at this man, this kid I'd raised, and I felt, I don't know, not anger, not quite sadness, just a kind of heavy acceptance. "Why are you here, Derek?" I asked. "Because I need you to know I'm sorry, and I need to know if there's any way—" He stopped, swallowed. "Any way you could forgive me." I thought about it, really thought about it. "I forgive you," I said finally, "but that doesn't mean things go back to how they were." "I know. You made a choice, Derek. You chose to stay silent when you should have spoken up. That tells me something about who you are, and I can forgive that, but I can't forget it." He nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" I asked. "Because here's the thing. When someone shows you who they really are, you have to believe them. You showed me you'll protect yourself before you'll protect what's right, and that's your choice to make. But it's also my choice to decide whether I want people like that in my life." "So you don't want me around?" "I didn't say that. What I'm saying is this. If you want to rebuild something here, it starts with you understanding that trust isn't given. It's earned, and you've got a lot of earning to do." Derek was quiet for a long time, then he said, "Fair enough." He got back in his car, started to leave. Then he rolled down the window. "Hank?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for everything you did for me. I never said it back then, but I'm saying it now, thank you." I nodded. He drove away. I went back to the garage and finished the project I was working on. A small wooden box, cherry wood, dovetail joints. I was making it for Mrs. Chen's birthday. She'd mentioned wanting something to keep her recipes in. As I worked, I thought about forgiveness, about what it means and what it doesn't mean. Forgiving someone doesn't erase what they did. It doesn't mean you trust them again automatically. It just means you're not carrying their weight anymore. You're setting it down and walking away. That's what I'd done with Sandra, with Derek, with Patricia Simmons. I'd forgiven them all, but I'd also cut them loose. They didn't get to be part of my life anymore. Not because I hated them, but because I didn't need them. and that's a different kind of freedom. Thanksgiving came. I spent it alone. Roasted a small turkey, made mashed potatoes and green beans, ate dinner at my kitchen table while watching football. It was quiet, simple, exactly what I needed. On Black Friday, I went to the hardware store, Menards on Lima Road. I was looking for a specific type of hinge for a project. I was in the aisle comparing options when I heard a voice behind me. "Hank Mercer." I turned. A woman stood there, late 50s, grey hair, wearing a fleece jacket and jeans. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Yeah?" I said. "I thought that was you. I'm Linda Morrison. We were in the same Sunday school class at First Methodist back in the day. Must have been, 30 years ago?" It clicked. Linda Morrison. Yeah, I remembered her. Married to a guy named Tom, 3 kids. They'd moved to Indianapolis back in the 90s. "Linda, right, good to see you. You back in Fort Wayne?" "Just visiting my sister for the holiday, but I wanted to say—" She hesitated. "I heard about what happened with your wife, with the court case." I stiffened. "Yeah? And I just wanted to tell you that I think you handled it with incredible grace. My sister was in the courtroom that day. She said you were calm, dignified, honest, and your wife—" Linda shook her head. "What she did was despicable, but you didn't let it break you. You didn't let it change who you are." I didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," Linda continued. "But I'm not sorry everyone got to see what kind of man you really are, the kind who doesn't fall apart when things get hard, the kind who faces the truth and deals with it." "I just did what I had to do," I said. "Exactly, and that's more than most people would have done." She squeezed my arm and walked away. I stood there in the hardware aisle holding 2 different types of hinges, feeling something shift inside my chest. Because that's the thing nobody tells you about situations like mine. The hardest part isn't the betrayal. It's the aftermath. It's rebuilding your life when you're not even sure what your life is supposed to look like anymore. For 22 years, I'd been Hank the husband, Hank the stepfather, Hank the guy who fixed things and paid bills and showed up on time. Now I was just Hank, and I had to figure out what that meant. It took me a while. The rest of that fall and into the winter, I worked. I fixed up the house. I went to work every day at Miller's Diesel. I paid my bills. I kept my routines. But I also started doing things I'd never done before. I joined a woodworking class at the community center on Tuesday nights, learned how to use a lathe, made a couple of bowls, met some guys around my age. We didn't talk much about personal stuff, just wood and tools and techniques. But it was good. Solid. I started going to the diner on Washington Street on Sunday mornings. Same booth, same waitress, a woman named Denise who remembered my order after the second week. Coffee, black, 2 eggs over easy, toast, hash browns. I'd sit there and read the paper and eat slowly. No rush, no agenda. I bought a dog, black lab mix from the shelter on Ardmore. He was 3 years old, calm, house-trained. The shelter staff said his owner had died and the family couldn't keep him. His name was Buddy. I kept the name. Buddy and I would walk the property every evening. 5 acres gives you a lot of room to walk. He'd trot along beside me, sniffing at things, chasing the occasional rabbit. I'd just breathe the cold air and watch the sunset and feel grateful for the silence. One night in December, a year after everything had started, I was sitting on the porch with Buddy at my feet when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Hank Mercer?" A woman's voice. Professional. "Yeah. Mr. Mercer, this is Sarah Chen. I'm an attorney with the Allen County Prosecutor's Office. I'm calling about the Sandra Mercer fraud case." My chest tightened. "Okay. I wanted to let you know that Mrs. Mercer has completed her probation and community service. She's also paid the restitution in full. As of today, the case is closed." "Okay. I also wanted to tell you, and this is unofficial, that what you did in that courtroom mattered. Not just for your case, but for others. We've had 2 similar cases come through since then. Adult children trying to get guardianship over competent parents so they can access their money. Both times, we've been able to stop it because of the precedent your case set. You helped people you'll never meet." I didn't know what to say to that. "Anyway," Sarah continued, I just wanted to thank you for being thorough, for documenting everything, for staying calm. You made our job easier, and you made the system work the way it's supposed to work." We hung up. I sat there on the porch, the phone still in my hand, thinking about what she'd said. I'd helped people I'd never meet. That mattered, more than I'd realized. Christmas came again, my second Christmas alone. This time I invited Ray and his family to visit. They drove up from Ohio, spent 3 days. Ray's wife made a ham. His grandkids ran around the property with Buddy, laughing and playing in the snow. On Christmas night, after everyone had gone to bed, Ray and I sat in the garage with beers and the space heater running. "You did good, Hank," Ray said. "This place, your life, you rebuilt it all." "Had to," I said. "Wasn't going to let her win." "She didn't just lose," Ray said. "She destroyed herself. You hear what happened?" I hadn't. "She's working at a call center now," Ray said, "living in the apartment on the south side. Derek doesn't talk to her much. I heard she tried to get the house back in the divorce, but the judge shut her down, said she'd forfeited any claim when she tried to defraud you." I sipped my beer, felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, just nothing. "You feel bad for her?" Ray asked. "No," I said. "But I don't feel good about it either. I just feel done." "That's the right feeling," Ray said. We sat there in the quiet garage, the space heater humming, the smell of motor oil and sawdust in the air. Brothers who didn't need to say much because we'd already said everything that mattered. New Year came. I spent it the same way I'd spent the last one. Alone. But this time it didn't feel lonely. It felt right. At midnight I stood on my porch with Buddy and watched fireworks going off in the distance. Fort Wayne lighting up the sky, people celebrating, people starting over, people hoping the next year would be better than the last. I thought about Sandra, about Derek, about Patricia Simmons and Dr. Morrison's fake letter and the courthouse and Judge Klein's gavel coming down. I thought about my father and his scarred hands and his quiet strength. I thought about Ray and his belief in me. I thought about Linda Morrison in the hardware store, telling me I'd handled things with grace, and I thought about the truth, about how it doesn't matter how loud you are or how angry you get. What matters is whether you're right, whether you can prove it, whether you can stand there under pressure and not break. Steady hands, steady mind. That's what saved me. Not revenge, not anger, not bitterness. Just patience, just documentation, just the slow, steady accumulation of truth. People ask me sometimes if I regret anything, if I wish I'd handled things differently. The answer is no. Because here's what I learned. You can't control what other people do to you. You can't stop them from lying or stealing or trying to destroy you, but you can control how you respond. You can explode and give them exactly the evidence they need to prove you're unstable, or you can stay calm. Document everything. Build your case. Let the truth speak for itself. I chose the second path, and it cost me. It cost me my marriage, my stepson, my home on Harshman Road, 22 years of my life. But it didn't cost me myself. I'm still Hank Mercer, still a diesel mechanic, still a man who works with his hands and keeps his word and shows up on time. Sandra tried to take that. She tried to turn me into a helpless, confused old man who needed to be managed and controlled. But she failed. Because the truth is, I never needed her. I never needed Derek. I never needed any of them. I just needed to be who I've always been, steady, patient, honest. And in the end, that was enough. Last week, I was at work, under a Peterbilt with a transmission problem. My hands were black with grease, my back was sore. The radio was playing some song I didn't know, and I realized something. I was happy. Not happy like winning the lottery, not happy like some big celebration. Just happy in the quiet way of a man who knows exactly who he is and what he's worth. That's the kind of happiness nobody can take from you. Frank, my boss, rolled over on a creeper. "How's it looking?" "Synchronizes a shot," I said. "Needs a rebuild." "Can you handle it?" "Yeah." He rolled away. I went back to work, and I smiled. Because this is my life now. Fixing problems, one bolt at a time, one diagnosis at a time, one honest day of work at a time. Simple, quiet, Mine. Sandra wanted the house, the car, the dog, the money. She wanted everything. But she forgot one thing. She forgot about the man who built it all, the man who worked for it, the man who earned it. And when she tried to take him down, she found out the truth. You can steal a lot of things from a man, but you can't steal his dignity, not if he won't let you. I won't lie and say everything's perfect now. It's not. Some days are hard. Some days I miss what I thought I had, even though I know now it was never real. But most days, I wake up in my small house with Buddy at the foot of my bed, and I make my coffee and I sit on my porch, and I watch the sun come up over my 5 acres. And I think, this is enough. This is more than enough. Because I took myself back. I took my dignity. I took my truth. And nobody, not Sandra, not Derek, not anyone, can ever take that from me again. Steady hands, steady mind. That's how you survive. That's how you win. Not by being the loudest or the angriest or the most dramatic, but by being the most patient, the most thorough, the most honest. The truth doesn't need to shout, it just needs to be true. And that's what I gave the judge that day. That's what I've given myself every day since, the truth. Plain, simple, undeniable. Sandra gambled that I'd fall apart, that I'd give her what she needed to destroy me. But I didn't. I stayed exactly who I was, and that's what saved me. If you're going through something like this, if someone's trying to make you doubt yourself, trying to make you seem incompetent or crazy or unfit, here's my advice. Document everything, every conversation, every transaction, every lie. Build your case quietly. Don't announce your plans. Don't give them warning. Just gather your evidence and wait for the right moment. Stay calm. No matter how much you want to explode, don't, because that's what they want. They want you to prove them right. Don't give them that. Trust the truth. It might take time. It might be painful. But if you stick to the truth, if you can prove it, the truth will win. And remember, revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes the best revenge is just refusing to break, refusing to be who they say you are, refusing to give up. That's the revenge Sandra never saw coming. She thought I'd crumble, that I'd fall apart, that I'd prove her right. Instead, I proved her wrong. And now she's the one who's broken. She's the one who lost everything. She's the one who has to live with what she did. And me? I'm sitting on my porch with my dog, drinking my coffee, watching the sun come up over land I own. I'm free, not because I destroyed her, but because I saved myself. And that's the only revenge that matters. So if this story means something to you, if you've ever felt invisible or powerless, or like someone's trying to take everything from you, remember this. You're stronger than you think. The truth is more powerful than you realize. And patience, real, genuine, unshakable patience, is a weapon nobody sees coming. Steady hands, steady mind. That's what got me through. That's what will get you through too. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share what I learned. And if you're fighting your own battle right now, just remember, stay calm, document everything, trust the truth, and don't let anyone tell you who you are. You already know, and that's enough.